AJ, it seemed like the focus coming into this trade deadline was adding innings and strengthening the staff in every way that you could. You got starters, you got back-end relievers, look like a long reliever as well. How satisfied are you with what you were able to accomplish heading into this deadline?
Yeah, I think we feel, again, like you said, I think being able to add to the pitching staff and being able to improve the pen, get some reinforcement to the rotation as well. And we looked also at the outfield depth component also. So I think for us to hit on a few of those areas of needs with players that we really liked as a group, I think we're excited.
Did it kind of play out as anticipated, or was it because it was such a strong seller's market you had to make some adjustments along the way, or how'd that play out?
Yeah, no, I think we were prepared. I think we had a pretty good feel of, the teams that were going to move, the players that were going to be on the move. In terms of every deadline's a little bit different in terms of the pace and how it works. For us, it was pretty consistent flow of conversation over the last really week or so. And it felt like it was going to be a pretty active deadline, and it was.
What did you think of the market in general, especially the prices for starting pitching, and how did you weigh out that versus, paying a pretty good price for a reliever?
Yeah, we explored it, obviously. I mean, I think, we looked at it and kind of had the two areas kind of neck and neck and just looking at what was available. I think we felt like, though, again, the more relief options and, from an impact standpoint, we felt there were some guys there that could really impact our bullpen. I think, again, we looked also at Musgrove's situation, his ability to hopefully come back here at some point in time and help us, and obviously weighed out the cost from a return standpoint of both starting pitchers and relievers, and, ultimately ended up feeling like maybe a little bit more strength on the relief side, some more options, some more impact. We went that route, but we explored, both starters and relievers.
How did the prices in this market compare to anything you've seen in a deadline?
I don't know. I think obviously, I think my guess is, just hearing a lot of people are talking about, hey, heavy prices for players here at the deadline. Every deadline, like I said, is a little bit different. I didn't quite feel that way. I thought in general, I thought that in terms of returns, there weren't too many that I felt like were shocking or anything from that standpoint. I felt like, it was kind of, in areas that we thought were pretty fair, honestly.
AJ, what was the purpose in your mind? What was the thought in adding those two back-end guys? What does that do for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of ways you can go about building, championship teams and rosters and pitching staffs. I think for us, especially the postseason, you get additional rounds, less days. You just need to have. I think it's a little bit less, right now, where you can get 2 or 3 starters and ride those guys and 2 or 3 pen guys. You need a really deep 13-man staff. A lot of different ways to do it, but I think what we've seen when we've been in the postseason the last few years, and obviously historically, you just need some guys that can get out some big time hitters. And if that's as a starter for 7 innings, that's extremely valuable. But we saw it a few years ago with Suarez and Hader getting huge outs throughout the first couple of rounds of the playoffs for us. And the more guys that can go get elite hitters in the postseason, the more options Mike and Ruben and the group have. We felt good about it, and again, I think there's a lot of different ways to build a staff, but just having a group that, hopefully shortens the game. We looked at it, and we've seen some teams win championships that way. Hopefully that's a real strength for us in the next couple of months.
Some GMs hold on to their prospects and others don't. I just wonder, where is your prospect list now? How do you view your farm system?
I think honestly, a part of us being able to have these conversations just continues to be the players that we're able to select, develop, and honestly, I think the depth of the system. Honestly, I think we felt that we have some guys, some pitching in our system, some guys that have taken some steps this year. That I know, by the publications and the rankings, 3 of the players that we traded, Robbie Snelling, Adam Mazur, and Dylan Lesko. We thought, we think highly of that group. I expect those guys to pitch in the big leagues and do really good things. We also, though, are super excited about a group right behind those guys and that are pushing those guys. And in some ways, I think for us, when we talked about our system and our depth, that was a strength for us, honestly. Was looking at the pitching side of things and where we were at from that standpoint. And, again, some really healthy conversation amongst our evaluators and our coaching staff over the last few weeks and months about this guy or that guy, and it may not be the mainstream guy that may be out there in terms of in the rankings. We've got some guys that we feel pretty good about, and again, same thing in the big leagues. Like you look up and whether it's a Matt Waldron this year going up and pitching well, or Randy Vasquez. Pitching comes from a lot of different ways, and we feel like in the system we've got some guys that have taken real steps and are going to contribute here. And I think that enabled us to at least have conversations on some of our quote unquote top ranked guys, et cetera. So
just to follow up on Kevin's question, a lot of people in your position across the game will talk about we need to be sustainable, we want to win every year, and as a result, we don't like to trade guys who are considered top prospects. Obviously, that's never been something that's held you back. I wonder why not?
I mean, I think obviously different ways to look at value. I think every decision we make, it's not like we're constantly talking. Eric Katsenda, Eric Grubner, obviously Peter in the past. I mean, it's constantly looking at the current year and then blending that with what we look at over a 3 and 5 year period. And you never want to just like, hey, we're going all in for this 1 year period. I heard that in 20 and 22, I believe, when we made some moves. There's been deadlines we've been very active. There's deadlines we haven't been that active because we just didn't meet the values that we put on certain players. But I think in those years you look up and a year or two later we still have a very competitive team and a really good farm system and players that are coming up, good young players that we feel good about. So it comes down to like if you can, if you have a scouting group that gives us the ability to make those decisions, and then it's not like a philosophy, hey, we're going to trade our prospects or anything like that. It's just like, again, some of this is moment in time. Some of this is a team that we believe in, and we think there's some value out there. And we also know that we have other good players in the system, and they can't all play on the field at the same time. So that's all part of our decision-making process.
AJ, what is the state of your rotation now, and how do Perez and Hoeing fit into that? Does Hoeing fit in as a starter? And just kind of evaluate like why those guys and maybe why not one of the like a top tier guy that was.
Yeah, if you want, you come to it. We're going to go sit down with Schulte and Ruben and kind of figure that out exactly where what we do here for the next 24, 48 hours with those guys. Always, AJ, come on down. Not you, Kevin, but AJ's good. I think I think we explored pretty heavy the starter market as well, and ultimately, every beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Different teams have different asks. We were open to the reliever market, which some teams are, some teams aren't probably. I think you kind of get into an area where maybe certain teams say they want to pay for the starter versus the reliever. I think for us, we went down both paths pretty open-minded from both standpoint here over the last few weeks. We just didn't have those deals that we felt like from a starting standpoint lined up for us. So we pivoted and went down some guys that we feel really good about with Tanner and Jason on the relief side. So
making it through the deadline with those top two prospect guys, Leo and Ethan, how do you react to that? How do you feel about that, having those guys still there? And obviously you were linked to some of the bigger names on the starting market. Was it ever a consideration that those two guys might be involved in something?
Yeah, I mean, we'll check in on, obviously if there's players that are of impact, we want to be involved, at least check in and see where it stands. So we're making decisions with full information, and I think that's how you make your better decisions. Yeah, we think very highly, just specifically of Leo, DeVries, and Ethan that you mentioned, Salas. We think those are guys that are going to play here a long time. You're talking about a switch hitting shortstop that's opening a ton of eyes, and in the minor leagues right now, and then a left-hand hitting catcher that's only 18, and again, a guy that we've had some really good ones here, over the last few years with Tatis and obviously Jackson, CJ, James Wood, some of those guys, they fit in with the top of the guys that we've had in the system. So you always listen. You always are willing to at least hear what other teams have to say. I think kind of the cool part of the deadline is we have our own evaluations, of what we think, but just kind of hearing what the industry thought about those guys, kind of confirmed what we thought, and in terms of just hearing how the teams evaluate them. But ultimately, we're just, really happy that they're with us right now for sure.
AJ, how did Tanner Scott come together? When did those talks pick up, and what do you think maybe got it over the hump for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think over the last couple of weeks, we knew that he was going to be moved. I mean, I don't think there was any secret there. I think he's obviously over the last 2 years, he's taken some real steps as one of the more dominant relievers in the game. Left-handed is a real factor too. We're some really good left-hand hitters that we're going to have to go through over the next couple of months to get in the playoffs and win in the playoffs. And really just looking at from an impact standpoint, you have a guy that's similar to Robert Suarez. He'll pitch, he'll take the ball. He's done the 1+. He gives us a chance with the left and right in the back of the pen, and some really good setup guys to match up really at any point in time. So that was something that was on our radar. Definitely picked up over the last few days. I think as we kind of got more of the prices of the different pitchers, relievers, starters, etc. And again, I think we put a really strong package in front of them. So I think one thing we have never been scared of is we're going to trade players, and I think maybe it's I don't know philosophically right, wrong. It's that we're going to trade players that are going to show up in the big leagues. At least our organization is, that are going to do really good things. But if we get what we're looking to do, and it works for us both this year and over the next 3 to 5 years, we're content with that. I think Billy Bean used to tell me that when I would talk trade with him. He would always tell me, I've traded all-stars, MVP, Cy Young winners, and 20 years later we've done a lot of winning, and I'm still in this spot. So I think we take it we're going to trade talented players. That's a compliment to our scouting group, honestly, and our development group. So I think the fact that we put a strong package in front of them, the fact that we stayed on it, we were open to intrigued by having somebody with his impact there. I think all those factors led to it, and obviously I think too getting Brian Hoeing in there, doing it for a player that's an expiring contract. I think for us having some carry forward value, we did that a few years ago with Matt Waldron. We've done that kind of in the Soto deal with Brito and Vasquez, and just having somebody that we feel we can help and continue to grow and develop. That was definitely a part of it here in the last 24 hours that put it over the top for us.
And you've said before, particularly with Soto and Hader, that you need high-end talent to win in October. How much does getting a Tanner Scott, maybe somebody who people on the outside might have thought you didn't have to have, how much does that fit into that mindset?
Yeah, no, when teams that win that go into the playoffs, win in the playoffs, obviously it's plus performers and guys that can do some pretty special feats, and some special things on the field. So yeah, I think that definitely when we sat down and evaluated, certain players that we'd have 2 years of control, certain players that are rentals that could start a game for us but maybe not quite the impact, versus somebody that we feel over the last 2 years has been as good as any late inning reliever in the game. So I think that was obviously a big part of what we thought about and why we ultimately made the deal. Yeah, no, it was definitely obviously always part of our consideration. I think the rental player, I think again, it's you got to make sure that you're getting somebody that we feel has a real chance to impact us. And then also, like I said, I think getting Brian Hoeing back in that deal where we have somebody that we think, we're excited for Ruben and the group to kind of work with him over the next, few days, months, and into the off season. I think somebody, at 27 years old, I believe, and he's filled different roles, and we think he has some more ceiling and upside. So I think all of that was a factor, but we weren't going to do a short-term deal for somebody that we didn't think had a chance to really impact the pennant race, and once we got in, could potentially be somebody that we could take off with and go through some different teams if we need to. So I think that, along with the fact that we got Hoeing, I think that was those were big factors for us.
AJ, how much the fact that Estrada is already at his career high in appearances and Morejon's tied for his career high in appearances, how much did that factor in the decision to maybe pursue relief pitching here?
Yeah, definitely part of it as well. We talked about it with the rotation, because we obviously, I think every team's searching for innings and searching for guys in the rotation that could pitch, and, we understand that too, but we looked at there. We get Martin Perez from a rotation standpoint that can help that out and take some of the guys that are kind of going into some different areas on the rotation side. But the same thing in the pen. It was the same conversation. Morejon and Estrada have been tremendous for us here this year. But just having some more options for Schulte, I think we've all seen it. There have been a few times here throughout the first half of the season where we get into that 6th, 7th inning. You get into that every day kind of. You don't want to get in a point where you're only going to 3 guys, and in any spot, winning spot, or even we're up 5-1 and we feel that pressure to go to those guys to hold on and get that win. Just want to be able to give Mike and the group the opportunity to hey, we're going to give somebody a day or two down and we're not going to lose anything from a quality standpoint. And I think ultimately we made that decision that that attacking it that way, it's going to be better for the group. It's going to be better for those guys kind of going through this first full season for them. and hopefully that's the way that we win a lot of games here in the next couple of months.
And then to follow up, you mentioned obviously acquiring Martin Perez. Did conversations ever get anywhere for, say, Jack Flaherty or Tyler Anderson, or maybe one of the higher end starters?
Yeah, we checked in on all of those guys. I think I don't, at the end of the day, like didn't feel like in the last 24 hours we were particularly close, on that grouping, but it was a check-in, it was conversation, it was back and forth. We were going through different players, et cetera. But again, I think over the last 48 hours, this was we had different paths at the same time, like you always do. But ultimately, we kind of started looking like it was going to be more down this path, and then, finding some different starting pitching that we felt like could take the ball and again can do a good job for us in the last couple of months, and we ended up lining up with the Pirates on Martin.
I know you want to win every single season, but did you in this front office feel any extra pressure this year, considering how last year unfolded and missing the playoffs?
No, I mean, I think probably one of the bigger things is like the way that the team has played in the first half. Obviously, there's been some ups and downs and some hot and cold stretches, et cetera. But I mean, just the fact that we have a lot of guys playing really well, in terms of, like the depth of our lineup, our roster, having some guys having some really good seasons, the way we've kind of battled back in a lot of spots. It wasn't like, this last road trip, I think I said it the other day, it wasn't like, hey, we went 7-2 versus 5-4, hey, we're in, here we go. Like, we felt like we had a good team, but I think the way we've played, like the style of ball, seeing some guys have some really good years, I just think it was like, hey, like we feel like we have a team that can compete and win. And I think that was more of it than looking at last year's team. We felt like should have gone to the playoffs and didn't. But I don't think it's like a reaction to that. I think it's more of like seeing how we're playing this year as a team, some of the good things we have going on, and just wanting to supplement that team that we think can play, deep into October.
And if you can on Tatis, I'm sorry. I think Mike said you've been cleared for baseball activities. How optimistic are you guys that he will return during this regular season and be the Tatis that can really help carry a team?
Yeah, I think so far, again, like I think it's kind of, we get our week-to-week checkups with Tatis. I know he's, and again, like I think, like swinging the bat, playing catch, I think those things are good for him right now. I think it's just a matter of when he's going to be able to get on the field, start progressing from that standpoint. We'll have more of an update here. I give kind of an update every 4 or 5 days and take it from there. But we expect him to be back, and exactly when, that's kind of, we still got to get a little bit more information from our doctors. But every report I've gotten has been really positive. And I think, the next couple of days we'll have a little bit more information about when he can really start progressing. So then we'll have more of a definitive time frame on, exactly when he comes back. But we're expecting him to be back for sure.
Joe has some pretty ambitious thoughts on when he can come back. What are your thoughts on when and then kind of how? Like, how much do you want him to be built up?
Yeah, I think some like Joe, Tatis, Peralta. I think those guys. It's kind of a at this point, like I said, we're kind of going week to week and see where it's at. He made his first rehab outing today, Joe. It sounds like he came out of that really good, in a good spot. So I think we'll huddle back up here again, next 24, 48 hours with Joe, with the medical team, and kind of map out what his schedule looks like. But hopefully he's feeling great tomorrow and he can progress from there. He threw, 35, 40 pitches today, and now we just keep progressing it from there. And, I think, get to a spot where hopefully here in the next few weeks he can impact us at the big league level.